happens after you apply to university at McMaster. We've received a number of different questions in advance. However, if you feel that we haven't covered the information you're looking for, you can still get in touch with us by sending a question through our Google Plus events page or our Twitter account at MacAdmit using the hashtag #MissionToMac. So what will we be covering this evening? Well, we'll discuss the application and admission process at McMaster University for Canadian grade 12 students and how that works, how we inform students of our decision, the basis and the criteria we use to make our decisions, as well as any supplemental steps that are involved for September 2017. Before we go any further though, I'll let the rest of my colleagues introduce themselves so you know who you're speaking to this evening.
Hey Andy, do you want to give your introduction just at the beginning again? I think it might have been cut off at the start of the live stream.
Okay, so I was just welcoming everyone, thanking them for joining us. As you mentioned, my name is Andy, and I'm a liaison here at the Student Recruitment Office at McMaster University. I'll reiterate that if you if you don't cover any of the information you're looking for, you can send your questions through our Google Plus event page or our Twitter account at MacAdmit using hashtag #MissionToMac.
Yep, and as Andy mentioned, my name is Matt, and I'm the one looking after those questions this evening. A little bit about me. I'm a recent grad. I just graduated last April from the Multimedia and Communication Studies program. So those social media accounts that Andy mentioned, you give a follow to on Instagram, Twitter, at MacAdmit. Myself and Andy are the ones posting behind there, so that's a cool space to interact with us and come hang out. But yeah, I'm gonna let these things move on. I'll be keeping an eye on the event page and on Twitter at hashtag #MissionToMac. And if you give us a tag, mention us on Twitter, I'll also see your question there. So we'll answer questions at the end, but I think a lot of your questions will be answered throughout this presentation. One more introduction and then we'll dive right in.
Hi everyone, thanks Matt and Andy. My name is Paula and I'm actually the Assistant Registrar of Student Recruitment here at McMaster. I am a Mac grad. I'm not going to tell you how long ago though, you'll have to guess that. And it's pleasure for us to be here tonight. Hopefully we have people joining us from both Ontario and from across the country, and we'll be able to answer those questions that we know you have around what may seem a very complicated admissions process and application process. So I'm going to dive right in. Excuse me, I'm going to talk about that application process itself. A question we're getting is it too late to apply? Probably not. Many of our programs are still open and accepting applications. When you go on to the UAC application website, if program is still there and still listed and you can still select it, that means it's still available. There are some programs that have closed, had a January 15th deadline. You'll notice that they're no longer available as an option. So that really is the determining factor, whether or not you can still apply. You can also still change your mind. So if you've applied to a program here and you've done some more research and you've changed your mind or direction, you can certainly go in, you can remove one program at McMaster and replace it with another program at McMaster that's still open, and there's no additional fee for that. If you decide that you'd like to simply add an additional program, you can do that. It just will cost you an additional $50. So just be prepared for that. One of the questions that we get is, what happens now you've applied? Well, you should all have received, if you've applied, an email from us giving you your login information, how to access Mosaic, which is our student applicant portal. More on that later. If you haven't received that email, it usually takes 3 to 5 business days from the time you apply on UAC. So keep an eye out on the email that you provided on your OUAC application. The next step is grades to us. Well, if you're an Ontario high school student, the good news is you don't have to do anything more. Your high school will automatically submit your grades to us when they become available. And typically we get them at the end of February, middle of February for your first semester final grades, and then mid to late April for those second semester midterms. If you are applying from outside of Ontario, then you will need to get us your hard copy transcripts, an official copy. The best way to do that is to send it to us via courier or some kind of registered mail that you can track and you know that it's been received. We also get a lot of questions about, do we use grade 11 grades? And no, that's the easy answer. We currently don't use grade 11 grades for admission, so no need to worry if that wasn't a stellar year for you. We won't be taking them into account, but it does mean that our offers of admission tend not to start until we get that first set of grades after first semester. So at this point, turn it back over to Andy, and he's going to fill you in on sort of what we base our admissions criteria on, how we make those offers of admission and when. And then I'll be back to talk to you about our supplementary application programs and how they work.
Thanks, Paula. So normally our decisions are not released until late February or March. And in order to be considered as an Ontario student or a Canadian grade 12 applicant, you'll need to complete at least 3 courses and have those final marks presented if you're attending a semestered school. For students who have their semester wrapping up at the end of January, we typically receive those grades in mid-February, and our first decisions are released at the end of February, early March, usually before March break. In addition to that, to receive one of our earlier admission decisions as well, you'll also, and for all admission decisions, I should say, you also have to demonstrate proof of registration and all of the necessary courses. If you're not quite sure which courses are required, on our website, future.mcmaster.ca, in the admission requirements section, a comprehensive list is there for all of the programs. Of course, to receive an offer of admission as well, at any point in our admission cycle, you'll need to achieve the average that we're asking for. You may be wondering, what is the minimum average that's required for admission? Typically, as we receive grades from applicants, we get an idea of what the average should be. And so we'll set a minimum cutoff for our first and subsequent rounds. And as we get more information in the spring and March in second semester, or for spring grades if you're attending a non-semestered school, we'll adjust that as necessary. Admission throughout the cycle as well. All applicants need to achieve our minimum English proficiency requirements. For most Canadian or all Canadian students, Ontario applicants who have lived their entire life in Canada, you are exempt from this by living in an English-speaking country for 4 years, or if you've studied in an English-speaking country internationally for 4 years, you send us documentation and you can be exempt from that. But everyone applying to the university has to meet those requirements, be exempted, or if you can't be exempted, you have to complete one of the tests that we have and meet the minimum conditions. How and when do we inform students? Well, you'll receive an email on our applicant portal in the Student Center. You will see the status change from pending to conditional. If it's a conditional offer of admission, that's the first location where you should be looking. As I said, around the same time that changes, once a decision is available, you'll receive an email notifying you to go check the Student Center and our applicant portal. And eventually that decision will be published onto the Ontario University's Application Center website so that you can accept it and see it among all the other options that you might have been admitted to as well. There is a legend in the Student Center that'll help you identify what type of offer you have, or as I said, it changes from pending to conditional or one of the other options on the legend to help you help inform you of when a decision is available. I'll pass it back to Paul to talk more about the supplementary applications, programs that require more than just grades to receive an admission decision.
Thanks, Andy. So we have a number of programs here that do look for more than just grades in making their decision. I am going to go through each one of these programs, kind of highlight the process, deadlines, but one thing that they all have in common is that this supplementary application process is mandatory, which means you do have to complete it by the deadline in order to be considered for admission to the program. So it's really critical that you pay attention, check the emails that you will be receiving with all the details, look on the website, visit the links, so to make sure you don't miss anything. So first off, I'm going to start with the Arts and Science program. That's a small program here of about 60 students in first year, very unique program, and they really do look to make sure that the people they're admitting are a good fit for the program. Their deadline is February 1st. That's both their OUAC application deadline as well as their supplementary application deadline. And that supplementary application is available on their website. It's been there since since September. And so you have lots of time to make sure you complete those questions before February 1st and submit it online. Next in line is our engineering program, and this is a new process for us this year. That means that students will be reviewed both on their admission average and on their submission of something called KIRA. And KIRA is an online assessment where you'll do 2 video questions and 1 written question. You do need to have access to a computer with web access as well as a camera. You will be receiving at the end of this month an email with an invitation to go and log on to the Kira site, at which point you'll be able to do test questions as often as you want before you actually hit the submit button that you're going to start the process. Once you start the actual Kira application, it is timed and you can't go back in and redo it. We are looking for those off the cuff, on the fly, genuine responses to the questions that you will be asked. The deadline for that will be stipulated when you get your email, but it will be around the middle of February. Our Bachelor of Health Sciences program, those questions have been on their website again since September, so you have lots of time to prep your answers. But unlike past years where you could have submitted them at any time between now and a deadline, you will be given an email which will be sent at the end of this month, and you will be given a password and a site to log into, and you'll have 5 days to test to make sure that your access is working properly. And once those 5 days are up, you will then have 7 days from that date in which to actually submit your responses. So that's why it's important that you have reviewed those questions and prepared your answers. So all you have to do is actually just type them in those 7 days, and you're not scrambling trying to get those answers done. Our Integrated Biomedical Engineering and Health Sciences program, or IBHS for short, this is a new program here. It will be using Kira, the same as Engineering 1. And the good news is that if you have applied to both of these programs, you only have to submit the Kira once, all right? So you don't have to go through that process twice. So it works exactly the same way as I just explained for engineering. Our Integrated Business and Humanities program, excuse me, it's also a new program here. That application deadline was January 15th, and you should have received an email. They were started to be sent out on the 16th of January with instructions on how to log on to Kira. Similar to engineering, 2 video questions and a written question. But in addition to that, you must submit a PDF resume as part of the Kira submission. So on the IBH website, there is a link to the supplementary application process with a sample resume structure so you can see how to prepare yours. Prepare it ahead of time, make it a PDF, save it on your desktop so that you're ready just to attach it to your Kira submission when you're good to go. The deadline for submitting that Kira submission is February the 13th. Integrated Science works the same way as Arts and Science. Again, a February 1st deadline. That program, again, is a small program, so please don't confuse it if you're just applying to any of our other Faculty of Science programs. ISI requires that you complete the supplementary application and the OUAC application by February 1st. And last but not least is our nursing program. Nursing is using something called Casper, which is an online personal suitability assessment. And that assessment is done on 3 dates. You have to pick one of those dates, and they're available on takecasper.com. But for your information, the dates are January 24th, February 16th, and February 26th. So you will need to complete Casper by one of those dates. And you can go to takecasper.com once again to see all the details. So again, before I wrap up, it's important to understand that admission decisions for programs that are using these by selection supplementary application forms is a true combination of your grades and the SUP app. There are no right or wrong answers to any of these supplementary application forms. There's no magic formula. It's really important that you just be yourself, be genuine, be articulate, and represent yourself in the best way possible. But make sure you don't miss any of those deadlines, because again, without them, you can't be considered for the programs. So at this point, I know I've given you a lot of information, but it is all on our website, or you can hit replay when this is over and live and listen to that again. I'm going to turn it over to Andy, who's going to talk a little bit about, so what happens once I get an offer of admission? What's next?
Thanks, Paula. So once you've been admitted, a few important steps. First and foremost, log on to the Student Center at applicants.mcmaster.ca. Shortly after you see that notification change from pending to a conditional decision or any of the other types of decisions noted on there, your offer of admission letter will be uploaded. It is going to be a digital PDF that you can use for whatever purposes, but it will also have all the important information relevant to your admission to the university. It'll indicate whether or not you've been guaranteed a spot in residence. It will demonstrate whether or not it's a conditional offer of admission, including the conditions that you have to achieve and the deadline to do so. For Canadian grade 12 applicants, one of the primary conditions is completing your diploma and graduating high school, of course. There will be a minimum average that's clearly stated of what you'll have to maintain at the end of your school year in grade 12, and it'll also state that you have to complete the necessary classes for that particular program. So it's very important to review the conditions on that offer of admission letter. There'll be information about scholarships as well as you're going through the decision-making process of whether or not you like to attend McMaster or elsewhere. That might be important information that may help you guide your decision, and so that will be there. So those are some of the more important and information that will be included once you've been admitted to McMaster. In addition to that, I also encourage you to join the official McMaster Class of 2021 Facebook group. You'll be able to find a link in the news section shortly after this hangout. That linked group is the only official group associated with McMaster. I know there's some various copies out there, but the link in Mosaic and the applicant portal is the only official Facebook group associated with McMaster. So join us there, meet the other students that you'll be attending a McMaster with starting in September. So I'll pass it back to Paula to really outline what you should be doing now that you've applied and now that you're simply waiting to receive a decision.
Thanks, Andy. So there's obviously sort of a checklist of things that are beneficial for students to go over. The first is make sure you're logging into Mosaic, clicking that Student Center button, because that's where all the information will be about any additional requirements like English language proficiency or supplementary application forms, or if you're applying from out of province, documents that we may need about your grades and your academic achievement. So it will also be, as Andy said, where you're going to find out first if you have an offer. So start checking there probably in early March, because that's when the first set of offers are going to start to go out, and they'll appear there first. So don't be afraid to check regularly. It's 24/7 access for a reason. If you don't get an offer in that first wave, as Andy said, we do use second semester grades. We review those. We look at applicants. If students meet the cutoff for the program based on those second semester midterm marks, we're able to make them an offer of admission. And keep in mind, any offer you receive from any university in Ontario, the deadline to accept is June 1st. And that's the same for all of us. So no matter if you get an offer now or you get an offer in April, the deadline to accept is the same. Visit our campus. If you haven't done so already, it really is critical that you take an opportunity to check out the university, tour around, get a sense of what it's like to be on campus. We have visit opportunities on tours.mcmaster.ca, and we have our big open house Saturday, May the 13th this year, which, based on feedback from past participants, it's one of the best opportunities to get a feel for the university, talk to students in your program, faculty members, visit all of the residences that you're interested in looking at, and just really get a sense of what it's like to be a student on campus and if this is a good fit for you or not. If you're joining us from further away, our virtual tour online is certainly the next best way to get a sense of our campus, and I would encourage you to visit that. Andy's already talked a little bit about our Facebook group, but certainly there's other social media channels like Twitter and Insta and YouTube where you can really get a sense of what's going on in our community. Remember that if you get that offer, you do have until June 1st to accept, but don't miss that deadline. Pay attention to that deadline. Also pay attention to things like housing, where there is an online application you have to submit. And I know Matt's been saying we've got a few residence questions, so maybe we'll grab those when we wrap up here. But there is a deposit required of $600, so make sure you're prepared to do that as well. And last but not least, make sure you're working hard to the end of the school year, because there are conditions on your offer like Andy stated, and it's really important you meet those. But also, our scholarships are based on your final grade. So the better you do at the end of the school year, the more money we can give you, which is always a bonus. So I think I'll wrap it up there. We have a good, 10, 11 minutes to handle some questions. So hopefully Matt can start throwing some our way, and we'll do as we can.
Thank you very much, Paula and Andy, for all of that information, all very useful stuff. A couple general pieces of information and reminders for those watching. This webcast and this live stream will be available after the fact on our YouTube page at McMaster UTV. So I understand there were some connection issues, it looked like, at the beginning that people were experiencing. I'm not sure what happened. I'll investigate it for the next time we host one of these. But the whole entirety of this will be available on the YouTube page once this wraps up and isn't live anymore. Might take a little bit to actually process, but it should be up there fairly shortly, and you should be able to look at it again. And we keep mentioning to check out our website for some more details. That website is future.mcmaster.ca. The link is just off to the side of the Hangout there. It takes you to the social page, but at the end, on that website, you can access all the information about the programs, about which courses you need and everything like that. So yes, both Andy and Paula, we have tons of questions. A lot of them were covered throughout this process. But we can talk a little bit about the residence application process. And then I'll find a couple more that are a little bit more directly. There were questions about how the lottery process works and a little bit about selecting a roommate as well. Andy, did you want to start off talking about that?
Absolutely. So residents at McMaster, you will need a certain average to be guaranteed a spot. And as I may have mentioned earlier, on your offer of admission letter, it will indicate if you've received a guaranteed space. Once you have that guarantee, around mid to late March, you will see the application to that open up. The link will be available on our website as well as through our portal. And once that opens up, you'll be able to log on and submit the questions that we ask you. It is a very extensive questionnaire, as well as a payment that's due 4 p.m. June 1st, if I'm not mistaken. Paula can probably confirm. And using those questions, we pair you with someone of the same sex who we feel you'll have a successful first year here at McMaster if you choose to live on campus. Those who your roommate's going to be normally are released in July. But in order to, again, live on campus, you have to be guaranteed a spot. If you don't receive a guarantee, you can apply to our wait list. And as you go through that waitlist process, as spaces become available, the housing office, they will allocate you to available spaces. The closer you are, your averages to the minimum that's needed. We haven't established the minimum. Historically, it's in the low 80s that you need as a grade 12 high school applicant to be guaranteed a spot within one of our 12 buildings. So that's a quick synopsis of how getting a space in residence and how we pair you up with someone. If you know someone that's also attending McMaster of the same sex, both of you can request to be each other's roommates, and we will take that into consideration when making those allocations for residents.
Thank you very much, Andy. There we go. Unmute my mic there. That was a little bit of a struggle. So another question we had is about alternate offers. Paula, do you want to talk a little bit about alternate offers?
Absolutely. So the short answer is we don't make alternate offers. So for students that have applied to a program and are not admissible, that means we don't automatically consider you for another program here. It is therefore important that if you are applying, especially to a bi-selection program, and there's another program choice at McMaster that interests you that you would consider, should you not receive an offer to that program, that you put it on your OUAC application. We will consider you for up to 3 programs at McMaster simultaneously. So you technically could end up with 3 offers of admission from us and then have to decide which one to accept. So that is your best bet in terms of wanting to have an alternate program here available to you should you not be admitted to your first choice of program. And in keeping with that, it doesn't matter how those programs are listed on your application form. Ranking, order, none of that matters in terms of your admissibility. You're treated the same as any other applicant. So I hope that helps.
Just to jump in here for a quick second, Matt, I see a couple of questions related to residents and the other response that I gave. Students who are asking the likelihood of receiving a single room and is residential lottery. And so the specific building you end up in within the 12 buildings, that is based on a lottery's process. We do take a lot of care into who you're allocated and who your roommate is, but the specific building, that is a lottery process. In terms of the types of spaces we have within those 12 buildings, the majority of our rooms are traditional dormitory double rooms where you're sharing with one other person. In the suite apartment options, technically speaking, you are in a room by yourself, but your living room, washroom, and kitchen is shared in an ensuite with other students. So if you're in one of those styles of rooms, the apartment or suite, you're technically living by yourself, but true single rooms, I believe it is a smaller portion of the room styles that we have here at McMaster. The majority of our room styles are traditional double dormitory rooms.
Awesome. Thank you for the extra information, Andy. I'm getting a few questions about business and commerce, if that has a supplementary application. It does not. We went through earlier in this webcast all of the programs that do require supplementary applications and what the processes for each of those are. If yours was not mentioned in there, something like French or the humanities in general does not have a supplementary application to maintain that, to get an offer. Just looking around, there was a few questions regarding submission of English language proficiency, how to submit those results once they've taken whichever test they chose to handle. Paula, did you want to talk a little bit about ELP?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as you get me back up on screen there I am. English language proficiency, if you are required to submit it, it will show as a requirement in your Mosaic Student Center, so that's the first place to note it. You will need to submit something like TOEFL or IELTS as an example. Any of those official tests, you need to request that your results be sent directly to us from the testing center. So you can take a copy of your own results and send us that. You will request through the testing center that they will send us the results directly. And there is information on our website about that, but it has to come directly from them. And the deadline date for us to receive an acceptable English language proficiency test result is April 1st. So I hope that helps with that question.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Paula. I'm just looking through a few of the questions that I'm seeing on Twitter. I might respond to just after the fact that are fairly straightforward questions. If you don't feel your question was answered throughout this webcast, feel free to tweet at us at MacAdmit. It's a little bit easier to provide a direct response since we cannot reply to comments made on this page. You can use the tag Mission to Mac, hashtag Mission to Mac, or tag us at MacAdmit. Andy, I know you've been scrolling through some of these questions as well. Did you see any topics that stand out to you?
Related to what Paul was mentioning earlier in English proficiency, one student asked that they were being asked to submit English proficiency testing results or exemption documentation when in fact they've been living in Canada for quite a while. And so if you find that that is the case, be sure to check your OUEC application, ensure that your full academic history is reported on there, ensure that all of the dates associated with when you studied from one school or the other is reported, as that affects those types of checklist items. And so be sure to double check that.
There you go. You're good to go.
Thanks. If I can just jump in here, I know we're still, oh, there I am. So we have had some students that have contacted us to say it's showing I need English language proficiency, but that just can't be the case. So as Andy said, there may be some information that you've left unanswered, for example, on your OUAC application. You could find it under something called other information. There's a couple of fields there about number of years in a Canadian school system and number of years in Ontario high school. Make sure you've completed those. If you haven't, complete them, save them, and resubmit If you're really concerned and it's just not adding up, you think everything looks right, but you're still saying you need English language proficiency, don't be afraid to contact us directly. That's what we're here for. We're certainly happy to look into those situations. You can go to askmcmaster.ca, submit it to us there, or certainly use the contact information on our site to give us a call during office hours. But don't ever feel that you can't reach out for help if you can't find the answer you're looking for on our website. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Paula. There's been a couple people asking if we want to kind of close off with a little bit of information on scholarships. Just to kind of give a quick overview of that process. And then I think we should be good to kind of wrap up this webcast. And if there's anything else that you don't feel your question was answered, again, just hop on Twitter, and within the next 24 hours, we'll definitely do our best to get through everyone's questions there. Andy, did you want to talk a little bit about scholarships?
Absolutely, Matt. So our entrance awards, you don't have to do anything. As a Canadian grade 12 applicant, you're automatically assessed based on your performance and your final admission average. So there are no steps involved in that regard. I always recommend to students as I travel across Ontario and other parts of the country to apply to different scholarships that might be available in your community. The larger number of awards that you apply to, the greater the opportunity for you to receive more funding if you're selected for the different awards. An excellent resource for McMaster is our financial aid and scholarships website, sfas.mcmaster.ca. It lists information about the in-course awards, bursaries, and financial supports that we have here at the university, as well as some of the other larger program-specific awards that are available for the different faculties that we have. But for an automatic entrance award, you don't have to do anything. You're going to be assessed automatically for that. And as I alluded to earlier, when I was discussing the offer of admission letter, that information and the different tiers that are available with our scholarship program will be highlighted in your offer letter for your perusal as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think on that note, we're ready to wrap up this evening, our webcast here. Hopefully everyone gained a little bit of information. Again, this will be posted on our YouTube channel at McMaster UTV shortly after it ends. Feel free to follow us on social media, so on Twitter and Instagram as @MacAdmit. I like to think I curate a pretty good Instagram, so toss us a follow. It'd be greatly appreciated. And as Paul and Andy were mentioning earlier, on Mosaic, shortly after this webcast, by tomorrow, you should see a link to the 2021 Facebook group, the official one. So join up. You can meet some other fellow applicants, and yeah, it's a cool place to meet some people before you get here in the fall. Any parting words from Andy or Paula? Andy, do you want to have your send off?
So thank you for your application to McMaster. As Paula mentioned earlier, strongly recommend visiting the university if you haven't had an opportunity to do so. Over the next 4 years, while it might seem like a short period of time, if you think of where you were in grade 9, where you are now, over the last 4 years, and where you will be 4 years from now, you can have a number of different learning opportunities and life experiences. And so you really want to choose a university and a learning environment that will help you achieve the goals that you have. And so strongly encourage you to do your research. It's great that you've applied, but absolutely join us for a visit at McMaster. I encourage you to, again, join our official and verified class of 2021 Facebook group by following the links, as Matt mentioned, to interact with other students who are also curious about attending McMaster. We'd love to hear how your thoughts are on this webcast. We will be doing Facebook Live and giving you opportunities to ask questions of current McMaster students, so stay tuned for those opportunities as well. But again, thank you for your application, and do your research. Make sure that you're choosing a university destination that's going to be a great fit for you so that you have an amazing upcoming 4 years.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Matt, for wading through all those questions and doing all the technical stuff for us. This was informal. informative for you. Please let us know, as Andy said, if this worked for you or if you'd like to see changes, or if you have ideas for what we could do in a future format such as this, or some Facebook Lives. We do have some planned coming up along the sort of the application and admission route from now until May, but certainly we're happy to hear your ideas. So good luck. Don't stress. I know there's a lot going on. You're probably thinking about almost writing your midterms now, or your finals, I should say, for your first semester. So please use this as a resource. That's what we're here for. We try to make this as seamless as possible and make sure you get the information you're looking for. So thank you for tuning in. Have a good evening, and hopefully we'll get all those questions we couldn't get answered during this half hour answered for you within the next 24 hours. So thanks again, and
Bye.